Yes, Pastor Josh is right. The question I want us to explore today is, in part, that question of why. The question of why it is we do the things we do. Why is it we don't do the things we don't do? Why do we make the various choices? Our text this morning, indeed, Jesus asks or proposes somewhat of an eye-opening statement when he challenges the motivation, if you will, of those who are following him, the crowds that have taken the trouble to follow he and his disciples across the lake over to Capernaum. The reality is we all have an agenda. You've heard me say it before. Some of you have heard me say before that if anyone ever tells you they do not have an agenda, they are lying to you. We all have an agenda. I have an agenda before you today. Sometimes those agendas that people have are good and pure. Sometimes those agendas that people bring to the table, that bring to a conversation, that bring to an interaction, well, they are loaded with self-interest rather than the needs of others. But this morning we will explore in the context of Jesus' teaching, in the context of the 6th chapter of John, that question of why. Not just why do we come to church or why do we worship God, but why do we do many of the things that we do? And what seems to be a never-ceasing yet always stymied journey towards being healthier on my part. A couple of months ago, I decided to meet individually with a trainer at the gym, hoping that the accountability that Brandon, the trainer, we're on a first name basis now, that Brandon, my trainer, I even use the possessive now, that Brandon would offer to me in keeping me in the gym, exercising, healthy and fit. The first time Brandon and I sat down, he said to me, "Patrick, tell me what is your motivation? What brings you here? Why are you choosing to do this now?" Of course, my first response is always, I want to lose weight. I'm not happy with how much I weigh, so I want to come. I want to be more disciplined. I want to lose weight. Also, I need stress relief. I live, I believe, a very stressful life. I carry my stress with me too much. I have, I believe, a stressful job. So I need a place and an opportunity where I can come and go and help relieve that stress in a healthy way. Also, I need a place to get away. I need a place where I can just go and be and put on headphones and listen to music and to exercise and to leave behind everything else that is a part of my day or a part of my life for at least an hour with the hope of getting and being a more healthy person. Brandon nodded and smiled because this was not the first time he had heard this from a client. This was not the first time anyone had dared to speak these words out loud. But then I looked at him and I said, you know what? I have to be honest with you. My real motivation is this: grandchildren. Grandchildren. And he looked at me as if to say, how old are you exactly? How stressful is that job? I'm 25. No. And I said to him, it's not that I have grandchildren now. It's that one day I want grandchildren. And not only is it that one day I want grandchildren, I want to be around to play with them. Not only do I want to be able to be around to play with them, I want to be able, when I get down on the floor with them, to actually get up off the floor from playing with them. My motivation was based on my own life experience. My father, as I have shared with you many times before, he died when he was 59 years old. Bob Chandler, he smoked too much. He drank too much. He did not go to the doctor ever. I do not remember him ever going to the doctor after I was 7 years old. He did not exercise at all, and he carried the stress of his life upon his shoulders and in his face constantly. He died 7 weeks before Colin was born. He never had the opportunity to meet any of my children. He never knew Colin. He never knew Liam. He never knew Lillian. He never had the opportunity. That is my motivation. I'm 47 years old. When my father was 47, he had a 17-year-old child who was about to start their senior year of high school, who was excited about the process of choosing a college and beginning a new stage of life. And if any of that sounds familiar, that is because that is exactly where I am in my life today. I want to live long enough to see my children grown. And if they desire to have children of their own, I want to be around to see them. I want to be around to play with them. I want to be around to do the things for them that I could not do for my children. I want to spoil them in ways that I couldn't. And I want my own children to look at me and say, "You didn't do that when we were little." That's right. That's what I hear is the joy of being a grandparent. That's my motivation for pursuing a healthier lifestyle. If that is selfish, so be it. I'll take it. But it is what it is. That is my motivation. And if you question it, that is fine, but I claim it and I name it as my own. Motivation. That is what we are to consider this day. Motivation. What leads us to do the things we do? What leads us to not do the things that we do not do? Some find motivation in setting life goals. And setting life goals and then applying to their life some discipline in order to achieve those goals. I don't know anybody like that. But still, that's what I hear. That's what people do. Some use a moral or an ethical compass as their path towards motivation. Some people choose life goals which are altruistic, exhibiting a sense of selflessness and a true concern for the well-being of others. I hear that actually motivates people. Then there are those whose motivations tend to be more selfish. What is in this for me? What means to an end must I pursue? Or any means to an end. Any end is okay as long as it benefits me. I don't think anyone would argue or could argue that we see that sense of self-motivation. What's in it for me more often than we wish to. For the next 2 Sundays, this Sunday, this morning, and then next Sunday, we're going to spend some time in the 6th chapter of John. Continuous verses. The first verse for next week's lesson is the last verse from today. Jesus says, "I am the bread of life." I am the bread of life. But we get a continuous story. This morning is part of a continuous story that begins in John 6, verse 1, the feeding of the 5,000. John's telling of the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus and his disciples are followed by the crowds into that deserted place. It's late in the day. It's almost supper time. How in the world are we going to feed all of these people? It's late in the day and it's too far to go into town and get something to eat. In Matthew and in Mark's gospel, the motivation of Jesus, the reason behind him doing what he does, according to Matthew and Mark, is compassion. Matthew and Mark clearly say, Jesus looked upon the crowds, he had pity for them. He had compassion for them. Moved by compassion, moved by the physical needs of others, Jesus takes bread, Jesus takes fish, he blesses it, he shares it, and there ends up being enough for leftovers at lunch the next day. In John, it's a little more complex. Because in John, signs and wonders are important because they point to the identity of Jesus. The whole purpose of the Gospel of John is for the reader, for the hearer, to come to believe that Jesus is the Son of God, the Messiah who came into the world to bring salvation. And it is through those signs and wonders that God's people, according to John, come to believe. Come to believe in a God who has such love, and believe in a God who has such mercy. Believe in a God who has such compassion for God's people. That God will provide. Just as, says Jesus, Moses fed God's people. You think it was Moses who provided for the people in the desert. But no, it was God who provided, said Jesus. It wasn't Moses. It was God who provided. These signs are important so that people might know who Jesus is and what Jesus represented. So the people followed Jesus into the deserted place because of the signs he was doing. Specifically, the signs for the sick. And after he fed them, Jesus walked across the water that night. The sun rose the next day, and the people who had been fed were left wondering, where did he go? And so they began to search for Jesus. They themselves crossed the lake. They got in the boat. They crossed the lake searching for Jesus. They followed him into Capernaum. Why, Jesus? Why did you come over here? We were over there. We were hoping you would stay where we were. Why? Because no matter how good those fish were, no matter how good that bread may have been, they were still going to be hungry the next day. And so they followed Jesus. And I can't help but wonder, was Jesus in that moment, was he feeling used? Did he feel as though the people who were following him were only using him for what he could give to them? His whole ministry was about bringing people into a deeper relationship with God, when what they really wanted was to fill their bodies with the next meal. Jesus knew what they needed. They were simply asking for what they wanted. You didn't come to me because of the signs and the wonders. You didn't come to me because of what God is doing through me. You didn't come to me because I am revealing the true nature and being of a most holy and loving God, said Jesus. You are coming to me because of what I can do for you. In a world in which we often reflect and, yes, even judge the behaviors of others based upon what have you done for me lately, the question of Jesus, the statement of Jesus is one of conviction, one that makes us pause to seriously reflect upon the whys of our faith. Over the last 25 years, I have seen a lot of people come and go into and out of the life of the church, into and out of even the life of faith. Sometimes people get mad about this or that. Sometimes a church over here has this huge, massive youth program that seems to be more fun and more energetic. But yet the kids in the youth program over here, they can't tell you the first thing about their own faith story and their own faith journey. But they sure do love all of the trips and all of the fun and all of the this and all of the that. But let the rubber hit the road about their life of faith. And they're left without the toolkit to be able to share or to talk. This church over here can surround me with more up-and-coming people who can further my business career. They are untapped client resources. I've seen it happen in the life of the church. The motivations that bring people into faith community or make them or push them to another faith community. All of that is true and real and happening and going on. And yet, meanwhile, down the road, there's this little tiny congregation that's struggling to keep the doors open, but their little band of disciples are feeding the hungry, and they're clothing the naked, and they're speaking up in the name of God's justice, and their people can not only tell you about the love of Jesus, but that love of Jesus oozes from every pore of their being and is visible and is felt in everything they do and in everything they say. The problem is they expect too much. They expect too much. And sometimes expecting too much in the name of Jesus pushes people away. Why are we here? Why do we follow Jesus? Why do we come here to worship? Because that's what our ancestors did? Because that's what our mothers and fathers did? Yes, for some that is the case, but it's not enough. Is it because we hope? Is it because we hope there is some reward for us in life after this one? Yes. For some of us that is the case, but that is simply not enough. Why do we come? Is it because of what Jesus can do for us? Or is it because of what we can do, because of what we can do in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord? Is it because of what we can do in the name of Jesus Christ on behalf of the marginalized and the oppressed? Is that why we come? Only you can say for yourself what your motivation is. Only you can say for yourself what your personal agenda happens to be for calling yourself a Christian, for calling yourself a disciple of the one we know as Jesus. I'm not a fan, a big fan, of professional basketball. But I have to tell you that I am slowly becoming more and more a fan of LeBron James. For those of you who don't know, LeBron James is arguably, and I'm going to use arguably, the best basketball player playing today. Some would say, arguably, and I'll have that argument in just a little bit, that he is the greatest basketball player ever to play the game. LeBron James never went to college to play basketball. He went from high school straight into the pros at the age of 17 or 18. He just completed his 15th year, I believe. His first 7 or 8 years were with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He was born in Akron, Ohio. Cleveland was his hometown team. They drafted him first. Cleveland, as you know, is an awful sports town with awful sports teams. He played 7 or 8 years for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He did not win anything. He became a free agent. He decided to go to Miami to play for the Heat. There, in just a few years, he won 2 world championships with the Miami Heat. He became a free agent again. He decided to go to Cleveland because the people in Cleveland were mad that he left Cleveland to go to Miami in the first place. While in Cleveland, he did win 1 world championship. He made it to the finals many, many times over the course of his career, but he has won 3 rings. That's why he's not the greatest ever. Michael Jordan will have that common conversation later. But still, He just left Cleveland to again sign fourth team in 15 or 16 years with the Los Angeles Lakers. Michael Jordan, 6 rings, 6 appearances in the finals, 6 championships, all with the Bulls. In an interview a few years ago, LeBron confessed that his motivation was chasing the ghost of Michael Jordan. And lately, LeBron has been accused of chasing rings, from jumping from team to team, hopefully trying to position himself to play for a basketball team where he could win as many championships as possible. Because in this world in which we live, if you are a sports fan, it does not matter how long you play, it does not matter how well you play. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is how many world championship rings you own. I don't agree with that, but still judgments are based upon that information. LeBron confessed to chasing the ghost of Michael Jordan. He's been accused of chasing rings, moving from place to place, city to city, team to team. He wants to be seen as the greatest ball player ever. Now, over the course of his 16-year career, he's gone from making $4 million a year, not bad, $4 million a year his rookie year. This past year, he's made just over $36 million a year. That does not include the endorsements that he makes. Estimates suggest that LeBron James is worth estimated $400 million. But this week, in his hometown of Akron, you may have heard that LeBron James opened the I Promise School as a part of the Akron public school system. Beginning on the 28th of July, 240 at-risk 3rd and 4th graders began a new educational journey that LeBron James has funded in large part, along with the school district in Akron, Ohio. In partnership with his foundation and the school district. This is not a charter school, but this is a public school whose costs will be shared by the district and the foundation. His motivation? I'm sure there are many who would have a cynical response to his motivation. But according to him, when he was a 4th grader, he missed 83 days of school as a 4th grader. On average, 180 days, as you all know, would be a total school year. He missed 83 days of school his 4th grade year, while his mother moved around from spare room to spare room, from couch to couch, in homelessness and in poverty. In the I Promise school that LeBron James has supported, there will be free tuition, free uniforms for students, a free bicycle and helmet for all students. Growing up, James said that a bicycle was most important to him because it allowed him an opportunity and a way to escape the neighborhood in which he was living. The bicycle was an escape from the crime and the drugs and the poverty, and it allowed him to get away. So every child will receive a free bicycle and helmet. Every child will get free breakfast and lunch and snacks during the day. There will be a food pantry for families. There will be GED and job placement services for parents. There will be guaranteed tuition for every student who graduates high school, who goes through the I Promise school. Guaranteed tuition at the University of Akron for every student who graduates. The school year will include more days than the normal school year, and there will be a focus on accelerated learning, focus on dealing with systemic issues that cause students to struggle in school. There will be resources to help students deal with their anger and their uncertainty. I don't know, y'all. I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think it's something that should be celebrated. And I realize that, okay, it's not all the way across, it's not all across the country. It's starting with 240 students. Think about what 240 people can do. Think about what 240 people who are given the chance over the course of their lives, in the most formative time of their lives, think about what is possible. Think about if some of you had those opportunities when you were going to school. Sometimes we find motivation in the most beautiful of places. Sometimes we find it simply because we want those who come after us to have an experience different than our own experience. Sometimes motivation comes in the form of accountability. Sometimes all the motivation we need can be found in the signs and the wonders of life and in the world around us. The peace and rest that comes from time with a cherished loved one. A piece of art, the gift of a child, the smile of a friend. All of these things can motivate us in beautiful and in powerful ways. Or we can choose to be motivated by the love of and a relationship with a God who has gone and still goes to great lengths to love us and embrace us. One of the things that we all have in common as human beings, as God's people, is that we have needs. We all need things. We all want things. We all are looking for something. We are all needing something in our life. Something to nourish us, something to sustain us. I am the bread of life, Jesus said. Through Christ, God has promised a sustenance for our spirits. This is not a relationship or a sustenance to be taken for granted. It's not the kind of relationship where we just get our fill for the moment, move on, and then come back hoping to get our fill just because we're hungry again. No, sometimes the best motivation is found simply in doing the right thing for the sake of the right and the loving and the just thing.